All right, let's talk about something that's, well, a little uncomfortable. We're going to unpack this fascinating idea, why lying can actually feel surprisingly good. We're diving deep into the neuroscience behind what some people call the cheater's high. So you've probably wondered this, right? Why do people who seem to have it all figured out, a great job, happy family, why do they sometimes risk everything by being dishonest? Well, the answer isn't just about psychology or making bad choices. Turns out it's rooted deep inside our brain chemistry. So let's get in. It almost never starts with some big, elaborate scheme. It always begins with something small. Just picture someone cheating on a tiny quiz, or maybe telling a little white lie to get out of plans. Your heart's probably pounding, you feel that risk, but then nothing bad happens. You get away with it. And here's the part that'll blow your mind. It's not the lie itself that triggers the brain's big response. No. The chemical fireworks show we're about to talk about, that only kicks off when you successfully get away with it. That feeling of relief, of success, that's the real trigger.
And yep, that feeling has a name, the cheater's high. It's this incredibly powerful, positive feeling, a literal rush of pleasure that floods your brain right after a successful lie. And what's truly wild is that this feeling can be so strong, it can completely shut down the part of your brain that's supposed to be feeling guilty.
So, what is actually going on inside your head at that moment? Instead of guilt, instead of anxiety, your brain's reward system just lights up like the 4th of July. It's a totally counterintuitive reaction, and it's all thanks to one very, very powerful chemical. And that chemical is dopamine. The moment you get away with that lie, your brain gives you a nice big shot of it. So you're not feeling a sense of wrongdoing, you're feeling a pure chemical rush of reward. It's not that different from the feeling you get when you win a game or eat a piece of your favorite cake. See, dopamine isn't just the pleasure molecule. It's also a really powerful teacher. It reinforces whatever you just did. So when your brain releases dopamine, it's basically slapping a big gold star on that behavior and yelling, "Yes, that was awesome! Let's do that again!" And this really gets to the core of the paradox. Your brain doesn't log the successful lie as a moral failure. Nope. It processes it as a win. You outsmarted the system. You beat the game. And that's exactly why the high feels so much like a victory. But, and you knew there was a but, this is where it gets really dangerous. That first powerful high, it doesn't last. Our brains are incredibly good at adapting. And this is how that one little lie starts to build into a cycle that is really, really hard to break. So here's how that cycle works. First, you get the reward, but the next time, your brain has already adapted. The part that signals guilt, it's called the amygdala, it starts to quiet down. It's kind of like building up a tolerance to coffee. To get that same dopamine rush, the next lie has to be a little bit bigger, a little bolder. And with every new lie, that internal guilt alarm just gets fainter and fainter. Let's put it this way. With the very first lie, you get this massive dopamine hit, but that guilt alarm is also ringing loud and clear. Now fast forward to the 10th lie. You need a much bigger lie to get even a small dopamine response. And that guilt alarm? It's barely a whisper. You've basically become desensitized. So where does this escalating chase for the high finally lead? Well, it leads to a place where being dishonest isn't even a conscious choice anymore. It's become a compulsive habit. At this point, the person is on a kind of neurological treadmill. To keep feeling that same reward, the dishonesty just has to keep escalating. Small lies don't do anything anymore. They have to get bigger, and they have to happen more often, all just to feel that spark from the initial high again. And this is the end result of that whole cycle. The brain is, for all intents and purposes, rewired. Guilt is almost a foreign concept. Lying feels automatic, and the person finds themselves completely trapped in a tangled, complicated web of their own making, often with some pretty devastating consequences. Which leaves us with a pretty profound question, doesn't it? If our brains have this built-in ability to reward dishonesty and to literally silence guilt, it kind of suggests that honesty isn't just our default setting. Maybe it's a skill, something we have to actively practice and reinforce, building a totally different kind of reward system in our brain. Definitely something to think about.